live.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. It is Wednesday, April 22nd, and we are here with Lisa Goffman, IT consultant for Joint Fiscal. And we're going to talk a little bit about a letter that we are going to be sending as a committee to Finance Commissioner Gresham as a follow-up to our discussions about the FY27 state budget and changes to the way the ADS budget is structured. That probably won't take too long. And then after that, we're just going to move into a conversation with Lisa about the FMO dashboard and then the projects that she tracks as an independent, nonpartisan consultant for JFO across state IT. So I'm Representative Kathleen James from Manchester.
Scott Campbell, St. John Gray.
Richard Bailey, Model 2.
Chris Morrow, Wyndham, Windsor, Bennington.
Michael Southworth, Caledonia, too.
Christopher Howland, Rutland 4.
Tara Torrey, Washington 2.
Rev Lebanon, Chittenden 13, Burlington.
Morris Million, Wyndham 2.
Great. And joining us today, we have an esteemed guest.
Marty Feltus from the Appropriations Committee.
Super. All right, Lisa, for the record.
Great. For the record, Lisa Goffman, JFO IT consultant. So after the changes in spending authority in the ADS budget, there were some discussions that Emily Byrne and James Duffy had with Commissioner Gresham about how we would track IT projects with those changes. And this memo is acknowledging the commitment that Commissioner Gresham made to track projects and request that in addition to the IT specific cost, they track the business costs associated with IT projects. So this could be things like the business, like for the ERP, there's the business process re-engineering contract that they consider a business cost. It could also be costs related to staff augmentation, those types of things. So the rationale is if they're making the changes that they need to track the IT portions, that maybe it would be a good opportunity to track the business portions. We're always looking for that information. And maybe, I'm not sure what they'll agree to. This came up in Senate institutions, and I wasn't under the impression that he was positive about doing it, but then when I mentioned those particular contracts, he seemed more open because they're very discreet. So maybe it doesn't hurt to ask, and I think it would be the benefit to the state as well to understand the full cost of the projects and what agencies might expect when they're undertaking a large IT project.
Yeah.
I don't have a question. I can't access. You didn't attach this memo to the email, I don't think.
I
I can't find it.
857.
Yeah, it was just now.
857.
It wasn't attached.
everyone else thinks it was. Did you guys all get it?
There it is.
Okay. I don't know. We've reached an impasse.
Because it went to St. John Prairie.
It had to go to St. John Gray back. That was a problem. Sorry,
That's okay.
it was down below.
Okay, so I have a couple of basic questions, which I could have answered myself if I had reviewed this this morning, which I didn't. So I think that just in terms of starting with the really basic stuff and then moving to the more complicated stuff. So I thought we had a broader concern, or just a more overarching concern, that the cost of projects were going to be hard to track, period.
Right. I'm not sure. I think that's what Emily and James met with him and talked about how they would do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was resolved, and the question would be, can we ask, in addition to that tracking, could they also track these costs?
Okay, so in terms of just creating a public record and making a thorough memo, and I'm sorry that I haven't worked on this to date, but I think it should start, and if you give me notes, I'm happy to try to draft it. I'm not talking about written
Yeah.
notes. Let's just talk it through right now.
Yeah,
I'd like to start with, after all of our testimony and conversations, our concern remains just the basic, we're worried about the basic thing. From testimony with you, from our conversations in committee, our understanding was that you agreed this could be a problem and that you were committed to working on it. I think we need to reiterate the very basic fundamental underlying thing of like, how are we going to do this period, and then get into the more detailed level stuff.
so that information I would have to get from James and Emily in terms of the description of exactly what I believe they had resolved with Commissioner Gresham on how they would do it.
Okay,
So I think I need to get that language, but I had it suggested that these costs also we request that these costs be included as well.
yes. So I'm going to want to start with the basic stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to reach out to James and Emily. Like, you don't have to do, I appreciate the start you made on this, but my work doesn't have to be, it already, yeah. So, I can look back at our budget memo, maybe, because I think I covered some stuff at a real one-on-one
I
level
think
in
you did.
there. So I might, just FYI, I might be adding some really basic stuff. I'll reach out to James and Emily, just to recap. Here were our concerns at the 101 level. It's our understanding that you agree this is important, and this is a chart of accounts thing, right? Because I remember you said everything's going to have to be coded
That's right.
so that we can easily pull it.
That's correct.
Okay, so
I
Great.
think you do have that in the budget. The letter that went out.
okay,
I remember you writing that.
okay,
Remember, Marty?
May I?
yeah,
In the House version of the budget, in the language section in the back, it would be E105 something or other. There's a comment regarding the change in the accounting, not the accounting system, but the budgeting system, and the change in the 3 extra special funds. And asking for an accounting of a tracking of those. I think it was at 6 months and at 12 months, or at least at BAA, which would have been 6 months. And I think unfortunately, I don't remember that language. I can dig it out. But I think it did ask for a tracking of those costs and how confident they were that was helping them keep track of the costs and the understanding the whole relationship to the underlying computer immunization, whatever. And the CIT, whatever it's called. And so we were asking for a report in January, I believe, at VAA time. Now, I don't know if the Senate has changed that, but I certainly will be in a conference committee with the Senate on the budget, I'm sure, and we can take a look at what the language is now in the Senate budget if they change it,
well,
and incorporate, perhaps, if you have some different thoughts that
that's
are
actually
not
great to
already
know,
expressed.
but that I don't think I knew that language had gotten put into the House passed version of the budget. So that's great. So I'll go find it. And I think it's enough to say, I can take a couple sentences from our letter if it's relevant. You say it here, Lisa, also, and I just always want to translate things to like super plain language. And I can also, I will reference that language in the budget, because whether it remains in or not, I think it's relevant that the House included that in its House passed version of the budget.
Right.
Okay, that's really good to know. Yeah.
I'm wondering about adding in to this letter some expectation about transparency. Maybe transparency is the wrong word. More articulation about the modernization fund. So where we've had that interest on the modernization fund get swept, but it also was not, there was no planned use for that articulated in the budget.
So one thing that I learned just very recently, which maybe everybody else but me knows, but I didn't know this, that Rep. Feltus knows this, that in fact, to spend that interest money, ADS actually doesn't have authority to spend that.
Mhm.
Did everybody know that? I mean, ADS does not have authority to spend that money. If they wanted to spend that interest money, for example, this year on ERP or on any other project, they need statutory language. They need approval from the legislature. I didn't know. I thought it was just sort of, if it was in the bucket, they could use it, and that's not true.
No, the fund was set up with certain appropriations to it, saying that interest would accrue to the fund. But in order to pull the interest out, which is what the appropriations committee did, ADS would also have to get authority to take the interest and use it for a specific purpose. Now, I think the assumption was that it was going to stay there in the budget and it couldn't be used. But they would have had to have had specific authority to use that interest money, not just the principal.
Okay, so they would have had to come to us either in the governor's budget request or in the BAA or at some point to say, we'd like to use this money and here's what we'd like to use it for.
And did I mishear yesterday or misunderstand yesterday that there was a sense that that ADS was looking to use those funds soon? Did I understand that correctly?
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
So I just want to offer for further enrichment of what we might ask. I think that this project is now how many years old?
Oh, I think 4 or 5, getting
5 years old.
2, 3. I think we're approaching our 5th year,
Yeah.
and it's a 10-year contract.
Yeah, so it seems like it's probably, I guess my expectation would be that we would not, that'd be something we would know coming into a legislative session and not something that we would be like not knowing when we're developing the budget. And so I don't know how to frame that. I guess the problem that I'm trying to solve is keep us with you on the journey and be thinking in advance of what the legislature will need to know in order to support you these projects, for example.
Well, and this is a memo to
Commissioner Gresham.
Commissioner Gresham, but we could also copy Secretary Violet Hughes.
Yes, and Jai Talk maybe.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm going to be inserting a new paragraph in the second place. So thank you for your testimony. It's my understanding that there's going to be a new paragraph there reiterating the basics. That's going to incorporate, Lisa, your second paragraph with this shift. I respectfully request. That'll be we respectfully request. Then I think we get into the additional level that you're recommending. So project level tracking should include not only contracts with IT vendors, but also business side contracts that materially support project delivery, such as business process reengineering tied to IT projects. Can you translate that for me a little bit more? What does that mean?
Oh,
For example,
business process reengineering, is that where you were?
just that whole paragraph, I'm just wanting to understand, make sure I understand what that means, or maybe have a few examples.
Starting with the project level tracking?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it's business process reengineering, staff augmentation, like when there's an appropriation to allow like labor to hire additional people to supplement, to backfill while staff work on the project, those types of costs, so business specific. So they still might be contracts, they could be professional services contracts, but it's managed by the business, so those costs. Because within ADS, they never included those contacts with the cost of projects. They started to, and some of the ERP, because I think they were trying to get some money for staff augmentation, so I mentioned it. But it's been an ongoing problem, and I know Senator Pitchell, when she was here, was really determined to try and crack that nut. And understand what the business costs were.
Okay. So what I'd like to say is, for example, and then just have a really basic example. If,
I think business staff augmentation. Oh, I guess that's not you're looking for. So
I'm just looking for,
hiring temps to backfill.
thank you.
staff.
Great.
Sorry,
For example, hiring temps to fill
to
in
backfill program
To fill
staff
in.
who are working on the project.
okay,
Yeah,
hiring temps to cover. So this is where the old journalism training comes in. So
Yeah.
hiring temps to cover for
for
agency staff, no, hiring temps to cover for
agency staff
agency employees.
that are assigned to the project for significant amount of their time, if not all of their time.
For a significant amount of time. That's great. That's helpful.
Okay.
Okay. No, that's,
It's like it's so ingrained, these terms that, like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
It's hard to translate like that. So thank you.
sure. So consistent chart of accounts coding.
And you meant also, you probably said this, but I just missed it. That includes dedicated staff time.
Sure.
That is being devoted to these projects to guide the implementers who are the people who are figuring out what the project's going to do.
Just like ADS assigns their staff and bills,
Yeah,
tracks that cost.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
business.
but it's not,
too.
but I mean, what I'm saying is it's not only temps to fill in.
That's right.
It's also staff time.
And that's where I think it's gonna get interesting to see, how they react to that.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to track a contract.
Yeah.
Than it is,
Sure.
Yeah.
It's just like, at the end of the day, where did you spend your time?
yeah,
Right.
exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So where you say associated state staffing and operating costs should be tracked, is it accurate to say this information is not currently,
It's inconsistent, I would say.
is
Like,
either not available or inconsistent?
yes. For example, I've been told some staff have counted their time towards the project, like the ERP, but others haven't.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's always going to be inconsistent because it's hard to know. It's hard for
Yeah.
a person to say, I spent 2 hours on this, and an hour and a half on that today, but at least needs to be an attempt
yeah,
to track it.
Okay. Great. And then consistent coding. Thank you so much. And then maybe some language that's more for Commissioner Gresham and all involved, that clear articulation around the use of the IT mod fund would be really helpful, like in the governor's budget recommend.
oh, yeah.
Phil, does anything to add?
Yes, I do want to correct what I had said before. The language in the House version of the budget is, it directs the Agency of Digital Services in consultation with Finance and Management to come back with a plan on how they can mitigate the deficit in the Information Technology Fund.
Oh, okay.
I
sent that one.
With a plan of how to,
to you.
what they might do if they need more revenue, or how to change expenditures or that kind of thing, which ties into the reorganization of those 3 additional internal service funds. But it does not specifically say report on the outcome of having the 3 separate internal service funds.
Okay.
And outcome.
Well, we can still add this.
So your memo would be a welcome addition.
Okay.
For them to have.
Okay, great. All right. So I think I know what I need to view. Does anybody have additional thoughts? Obviously, I'll send a draft to everybody and to you, Lisa, to make sure everything's accurate.
Sure.
Okay. And it sounds like I should copy Emily and James.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good.
Time for a quick follow-up to yesterday's conversation on ERP while we have Lisa here.
Well, we do, because we have Lisa here for another hour to talk about all the state IT projects she's tracking.
And that's one of them.
And that's one of
That's
them.
included in
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's what we're doing next. So if we're done with the letter, the memo.
Okay,
All right, Lisa, thanks for getting us started on that.
sure.
I wouldn't honestly, if I would have struggled to start, but now I think I can get a second draft ready for everybody to look at.
Okay, I'm just jumping to the next one.
Okay, so now moving along, we are going to talk with Lisa about the EPMO dashboard specifically, but then in a larger context, all of the projects that she is tracking for JFO, whether on or off the dashboard. So,
Yes. So do you want me to jump to the dashboard?
do you
What do
want to
you want?
start with ERP? What do you want? How do you want to do it?
Well, here's my thoughts. I know Stacy's coming in tomorrow to talk about it. I used the information from what we gathered for Jai Talk last fall so each project also has a lot of the cost information and appropriation information that we had already gathered. And then I give a current update on what's happening in that project as of today. I know you're meeting with her. We could look and see how these are reflected in the dashboard in prep for her meeting.
Okay.
If you want, I just have to get there because I was having bandwidth problems here.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Well, we have plenty of time. I mean,
So do you want to just go through the projects now and maybe we can talk about the ERP and then we can look
Yeah.
at the dashboard?
does that sound okay to everybody? Great.
Okay.
And Lisa, you turn that in, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. We'll get
I
it
need to
posted.
get Alex.
Okay, great.
Okay. So this is, the summary of the project. As you know, I only, have monitoring a small part of the IT projects that are out there. And then there are some that we have planned coming up for review. So I'll go through all of those. The first one is the unemployment insurance modernization. And you'll note that I included all the appropriations, that were authorized from the mod fund. The fact that I did the JFO review in January 2024, which approved the release of 30 million. And then we had the total funds for the project is 52.3 millions based on appropriations in FY 22 and 23. And there was also an increase in the Vermont Department of Labor operating budget to support the project. That was permanent, I believe. And the total cost for the 25-month implementation over 3 years was 45.3 million. There's been a contract amendment, and that was done after they consolidated the phase 1 and phase 2. And they said they had savings based on that consolidations, but they were going to use that for additional features that were offered through the product that were meaningful to them. So you'll notice there's a gap in there, the 52.3 total funds available and the 45.3 million. That was supposed to be used as another vendor that would go in for business process reengineering. But Commissioner Smith told me that was not offered to them. And they thought because it's such a specialized area, it would be difficult to find a vendor with that skill set that could do it. So they would do it internally. So it's an interesting number, but that gap now. So there's like a $7 million gap on the difference between what was available and what you're spending. I'm not sure if that is still the case. We would have to see in the final ABC form.
We'll just did gap one more time.
Okay, this 53 million total funds available for the project.
Yep.
53.2. And that's everything from what was appropriated to savings in the operating budget from costs supporting the old systems, so those types of things. And then now there's a total cost for the contract for the implementation was 45.3 and in the management and operations. So that includes like the ADS staffing and all of that.
Okay.
So that was what was predicted at the beginning of the project, and the actual contract cost for FAST didn't, it even though they did an amendment, we expect it to be a bit, probably the same. So if they're not using that money for the business process reengineering, granted, this is over a specific time period that savings is, but I just wanted to note that.
So this is under budget.
It appears but, you know how it goes. You have to see what the final numbers are.
And when would we, like, when would the legislature see that gap,
Well,
those gap funds? Where, when and where?
typically they produce another report at the very end of the project where they show what the actual expenditures were on a project, so we can look for that. I raised it with JFO when I noticed it. Because, it was a surprise to me that wasn't used.
So, and you may not know the answer to this. Like, I'm sorry, I was recognized, I'm sure.
I don't think I need to look.
Okay. So I'm trying to understand the legislature, when and where the legislature has the opportunity to do its job of providing oversight. And so do you know when or how that gap, how would the legislature know about that? Like, does it come to us in a report? Or is it something that we would have to go case by case to look at?
I think we would notice it at the end, and it's possible that.
End of the project.
Yeah, that where you understand where something was put out there, like, here's what we have available to it, and here's what we're spending. And then if it's an internal operating cost, I think that they do have some flexibility at labor to determine how they use it. They just had reported this is what's available to the project initially. And then this is how we end it. I think it's interesting to look back, which is why I raised it when I noticed it in my notes and pulled it forward into this document. It's just another, question that we could pose to labor, perhaps.
And what is the question that you would pose?
The question is, there were $52.3 million that were said to be available for this project. And based on the information that's provided to us, it appears that 45.3 million was accounted for or planned to be spent. And that the reason they said the gap for that 7 million is going to be used for business process reengineering, and that project wasn't done. They decided to do that internally. So I think, that's where you start with the question. So since you're not doing that, what happened to that?
Yeah, Rick Campbell.
I must have missed this when you were talking about the beginning of this memo. It says 27 million from the Tech Mod Fund in 2022 and $30 million released from the FY23 budget, 2024.
Oh, yeah.
Which sounds like
Yeah.
$57 million.
Yeah.
So is that wrong, or is that?
That's a good question, because I'm wondering if because I pulled this from the JITALK memo when we were tracing back all the costs for that. So whether this was an error or did we actually pull a number before we knew about something else? I don't know the answer. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Okay.
Thank you for noticing that.
So you're gonna be looking up what
What was-
actually was available, what's
Yeah.
available?
I'm gonna look at what was appropriated. Okay.
So in terms of, and I know we're going to keep talking project by project, but I've been thinking a lot about Rep. Sebelia's question, since the whole biennium, about how can we do our job, our oversight job. And it seems to me like our obvious leverage point is the money, which is what we, what we allocate. So anytime there's a request for, an appropriation, we need to make sure we have the information we need to make a good decision. So we need to make sure that the requests are clear in the governor's recommended budget. So we're going to talk a little bit about that memo. So if there is going to be any kind of specific request, that is really clear and easy to find at the governor's recommended budget, 1. Two, that, oh, shoot, I lost my thought. I hate it when that happens. So the governor's recommended budget. Two, that any statutory authority is clear from the outset. And then three, this more important question of where the money goes then, you know, so the information we're putting in this memo about, we want to make sure that we can see all this spending easily across all of state agencies and departments, and that that's easy to find and easy to track and easy for us to look up. And then we have you, and then we have the UpMode dashboard. So are we missing?
Well, I think at some point, remember all those categories that I do in the reviews?
Mhm.
Those were deemed necessary to understand whether or not we felt comfortable making an investment. And over time, the types of information that is available to us when they're requesting budget isn't always available. And so it seems a bit unfair that, you know, even in state government before ADS was formed, and we've talked about this before, you know, when you had another CIO at Department of Information Innovation, they had standards for what agencies had to provide to them before they would agree that they could ask for money or even do the project. And that's degraded. We're not getting the same type of information, but ADS is initiating a new protocol at the beginning of projects, if they're referring to it as project initiations. So it could be that there's more information available to us because they've added this to the process. So we wouldn't, and I don't believe we would end up with something like the ERP where there were requirements documented for a project. It would go through that process. So we might start to get better information. But I think, you know, it's difficult if to fund it, to ask to be fund a project when you don't have information about whether, you know, it's to standard or, you know, or should be funded.
And I would add that it's also difficult to understand why some projects are not funded or others are without that information. And, you know, I'll just say, being really candid, because, you know, I like to hold back. I find that I find this to be really frustrating. I don't even sense that there's an acknowledgement that the legislature is really having a hard time keeping up here with, and keeping up, I mean, following along. And that's really constitutionally required. So I'm just finding it a little frustrating, just a lack of acknowledgement, because I think an acknowledgement of that fact could then put partners at the table to help us kind of figure this out, to make sure that we're all make sure we have great IT that our monitors rely on, and that we understand the money.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say, and the very uncomfortable position, I'm speaking just for myself, but the very uncomfortable position that I feel I'm put in when I'm being asked to take testimony on and make recommendations about expenditures that are in the tens of millions of dollars without feeling totally confident, like, yep, this is a great investment and we're going to be able to see into the black box and know what's going on. It just, it's not a great feeling.
I think neither party can be effective without solving this problem, because we're all stymied. You know, they'll be stymied and frustrated over their lack of, you know, ability to get an appropriation. And especially as times get tougher, you know, and you're stymied on your ability to do the oversight that you're charged with doing. So it's a question of how can we both be effective? We both have to come to the table and be willing to work together on it in order to do it. But right now it doesn't feel optimal, that's for sure.
All right, well, sorry.
No, this is good. So moving on to the current status of this project,
Oh, sorry, Rep. Haley.
Yeah,
oh, sorry.
I know this is a little off the beaten path, but is anything working
Have they got anything that works?
I'm glad you just asked that right at this moment, because this project is working. This project is working.
Okay.
They are on track for completion this summer. So I know they have different dates that they've been bouncing back and forth on, because they're in UAT and they're finishing up, and they really understand the importance of getting this right.
What's UAT?
User acceptance testing. It's at the very end of the project where they make sure everything that they spec'd out works. So they're doing that
The
now.
people who actually work there are
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they have all of these test scripts that were developed with the help of ADS.
Okay.
And I think they're up at the state building up at the airport, that it's just like testing. It's like all these people
Oh,
that
wow.
are just, and so they've done, and this project is definitely ERP is hard, IE and E will be hard, but this project's really hard. You know, they really didn't have much documentation, and these old systems and these old language, it was like COBOL C or something, really old. She actually, Commissioner Smith, when I was over there last week, they had this great framed photo of the first printout in green bar paper from that system with a date on it from 1970. So they've been working really hard. And at Jai Talk this summer, legal aid came to testify and talk about their interest in this project and whether or not they were included. And after that meeting, VDOL did follow up not only with legal aid, but also other organizations such as the National Association of State Workforce Agencies and Higher Ability, which is a form of voc rehab. They were really committed to having people help them test and give them their opinion from their perspective and their needs, whether the interface worked for them. And they were able to, she said, accommodate most of the requests for changes. And she said also, luckily, people pretty much had the same input. They noticed the same types of things. So they were able to, at least make some adjustments based on their needs, which is fantastic. They've also been holding some virtual town halls. They had one recently with 90 participants, and they have others planned coming up. So in terms of stakeholder engagement, which is sometimes very lacking in some of the projects, they have really been working hard to do that and very responsive to the requests from Jai Talk. And
Is that typical? Is that
I
common or?
No, I don't think so. I don't see it in a lot of projects, and I didn't see it with a lot of projects as a software vendor either, with other states. So because you get so bogged down, it's hard to kind of make the time. But when leadership says, yeah, we're making the time and it is important, there's a lot of payback for this. So it is the right thing to do. And they did take that feedback seriously, which is fantastic. So they're on track. They're just in the final stretch. And, I told them I want to come to the party that you have, because it's really an impressive effort. So there are things that go well, and Vermont can do hard things.
Yeah.
I have a more general question.
Yeah.
If we want to, well, I'm just looking at the dashboard. This might be for Secretary Hughes tomorrow or Stacy, but there's, including in the red ones that are in red, the first one that's in red, I'm not even sure why it's in red, because it has the estimated implementation costs and current are the same and the timelines are the same. Then there's half a dozen on here that have no data in initial completion date, estimated cost, any of that stuff. So are you looking at the dashboard as a whole or just those specific?
The auditor of accounts was revisiting the audit that they did at the ADS a few years back. They were revisiting that, but they also included, they said they were going to look at the dashboard and check the accuracy of it. So they're working on that. They said the report should be out later this year. So I don't know what they're finding, but I've noticed some things. And another thing, since we're talking generally about it, I noticed VT Buys isn't on that list anymore, when I know they went live with minimal viable product, but I believe they're gonna go live with the PO module of it to do purchase orders. And that's going to come out, I think, in the next year. So it's like it was closed down. It's not on the dashboard, but there is still work being done on it, and I'm not sure why. And I think that was a question I was going to suggest for tomorrow.
Well, let's stay with you have more projects, right?
Yes.
Why don't let's stay with your written testimony and go through your projects. And then you were gonna walk us through some dashboard info
Yeah.
also, yeah. And then we do have ADS coming in tomorrow specifically to talk about the dashboard and key projects on the dashboard. And we can get the auditor back into. So,
Great.
Tori?
Thanks, Lisa. I just on the UI,
Okay.
I'm just curious, is one of like the performance metrics and goals of the modernization project to have more timely access to unemployment?
I think that's ingrained in it. I don't remember.
Whether they're
What they- if
technical
they-
goals or anything?
Well, I think they had some goals in the original RFP that they listed, but I don't have those in front of me. And at some point, we could invite them back in to talk about
I
their
think that
project and
would
what
be
they're
great.
seeing.
That would be good.
Yeah. I know they're really nose to the grindstone between now and go live this summer. But I think they would definitely be wonderful to have in and talk.
Okay, so this is a big one you've been tracking. How long have you been tracking this one?
Oh, probably 3 years,
Okay.
4 years. Actually, when I first started, I was looking at this. Before they had issued the RFP. So the next one is the ERP project, and I'm pointing you to yesterday's discussion on that. We did a pretty big update, but I did want to check in and see if there were any other questions about that.
Yeah, Marl.
Yeah, so in your commentary yesterday, you were saying that stars and FARs would each require 25 to 30 million.
If they were to be replaced on their own. That's what was listed in the independent review. The CIO's independent review, they looked to see what those costs were in other states that had recently replaced them.
Okay, so the secretary said that this whole ERP project would come in under $60 billion yesterday. Seemed cheap compared to some of these other,
Yes.
large enterprise-wide, statewide system redos. So, where are we at in terms of being able to have confidence in that number?
I am not confident in that number. Because I don't think I think they're going to uncover gaps. And I would hope what they're considering the cost of the project is considering the cost to replace all of the needed functionality within those legacy systems. Versus saying, oh, that's a separate project. If we're replacing those systems, I think it should be recorded as that. But
Well, if I understood her correctly, says stars and FARs were in there as well.
she says that, but it's in the risk log. It's the risk log from the people that are managing that project. This fall, it said, we don't know if we can meet the functionality, and they were looking at the Department of Transportation STARS system, the time management piece, so that the employees put their time, and that's loaded just into STARS, right? And then there's some way they get the data to Vision too. I think in that case, they might be double entering some things, but if you can't collect the time, meet the time management, how do you replace STARS? And I did talk with some other people to confirm that people at labor that said that yes, their requirement is exactly the same as STARS. They each capture data at a lower level of granularity than Vision would allow, and that's why they have those systems separate. And if their take was, well, if we can't do the time management, we can't do the replacement. So they're committing that they can do it. I think that's great. And I hope they can. I hope they work it out. But I haven't heard that anything that it was hopeful. And especially since when they approved the top project and they went to Talk and they said, we absolutely can do it. And we're seeing it as a risk. We don't know if we can. So I don't know what the answer is, but it's troubling to me.
Representative Sebeli?
So I think I heard yesterday that they are bringing together the partners for the various projects for a series of full day working sessions, or at least one or two, soon, maybe next month, if I recall correctly. Are you ever invited to attend those meetings?
No.
Could, if would it be inappropriate for us to ask you to attend those meetings?
I'm not sure if
I guess that's probably an inappropriate
It-
question
well,
to ask you.
yes, I don't know if I'm invited.
Yeah, well,
Yes, I know, but that's my only answer I have.
have we ever asked that? So I just wonder, you know, if we talked with JFO, if that,
You could definitely talk to JFO about it.
it's a lot of public dollars. We are clearly challenged to follow along. The secretary is clearly challenged with having to, I think she said, continually relitigate this. And so,
I know that, but it's a, you know, but it's my job to raise those issues. And
Yeah.
if I see those are, what we're seeing is actually in line with what we were identified as risks, then we have to state it. I know she wants to focus on that. It's great that they're changing course, and I think they have to change. I don't disagree with you, the decision to do it. I'm just saying there will be more of it. I feel comfortable saying there will be. That's how confident I am.
So
But I know they're doing their
recordings-
best.
Are there recordings from those meetings, those work sessions? Like, are there reports from those work sessions?
You're talking about the project team.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, well, following along from that, if we're talking about the same thing, my assumption, and this is, I think we picked up on different snippets yesterday. What I was thinking about was that there's a project team and somebody from each agency or department has been assigned to work on this cross-government project team. And are they the folks doing the actual, because what I'd like to hear from, I'd like to take more testimony on this topic, and I'd like to hear from the folks within each agency, not only, you know, Secretary Riley Hughes, but the people who are actually in each agency doing the work.
I think the program staff, the business staff are the ones that I would like to hear from most, because they understand what they need and they're supposed to be leading the charge of this project, not IT. And it'd be interesting to see if they feel it's meeting their needs and what risks they see. I think they're really important and critical to the success of any project. And when I look at what the project over at Department of Labor, the UI project, they had some, you know, the Talk meeting, some pretty impressive, a woman that was sort of leading the program side, and boy, she knew everything. State employees are like that. They care about their work and they're going to know what will work for them and what won't. And, you know, there is a question. I think when we talk about promoting stakeholder engagement, well, there are stakeholders in state government, and it would be great to hear from them.
I'm just looking to see who the folks are. It does list, I'm not sure if this is a little bit outdated, but it does list somebody at many of the program leadership team. Deputy Secretary Brown, we heard from him yesterday, but then there's Deputy Commissioner Fuller at AOA, a Deputy Commissioner of Finance and Management, and on down the line. Are those the folks we should be, or is it even
Well, I mean,
deeper down?
even just, I think hearing from people from Stars and Bars could be interesting, especially Stars, because with the mats, they've been actively working on a project, and what are they feeling comfortable that it can meet their needs, or is there still some uncertainty? I know, although labor hasn't been the focus and will happen in the finance piece, I was under the impression that they were definitely paying close attention and had some thoughts on it. And so, yeah, I think it would be great to hear from a sampling and then go from there. But it's nice to hear directly from the business.
Another thing, while we're on the ERP topic, another thing I wanted to ask about was, I'm also trying to wrap my head around Guidehouse. And I think Rep. Sevilla had mentioned yesterday, an article she had seen in Grist, and then it was in Digger, about Guidehouse and the FEMA money. And I skimmed over that article this morning, and it sounded to me like, which is something I guess I didn't understand, that Guidehouse has a master contract with state government, and then within that master contract, they do different. I don't really understand the Guidehouse relationship.
Well, maybe it will help you if I mention what their former name is.
Price
Cooper's
Price
Waterhouse.
Cooper Waterhouse.
One of the huge worldwide consulting firms. So they do a lot of different things, and it's possible that the people involved in this project don't even know about that FEMA project, that they've never heard of it. Or
I see.
Yeah, so it's possible that it's completely. It's not like a small group. It's a huge organization.
Okay. Anyway. Okay. Okay. So sorry, we got sidetracked. Do you want to?
So anything else around ERP or?
Well, maybe you can help us figure out who to invite to hear a little bit more about how ERP is happening at sort of a.
Do you want to start with like the
Stars and Bars?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Let's start with that. And
I have a question about yesterday's hearing, because you had identified the lack of a gap analysis as a big risk. Secretary Riley Hughes, when I questioned her 3 times, said, we've identified the gaps and we have a solution for all of them.
And this is where I think I said at one point, like, show us.
I noticed that she did qualify that by saying, we identified all the gaps within ERP functionality, which made me suspect there's other stuff they've defined out of ERP and are going to handle separately.
Well, it possibly. And, they haven't done the analysis for finance. So they can't say they've identified the gaps, that's for sure. And even the example when she addressed the specific example I gave, the system integrations and the payment files, she was talking Vault versus API. All I could think of is, so you're saying you're going to change all those systems that are producing those files? And when do we have time to do that? So there's a lot hanging out there. I think if they had the gap analysis, they would have showed me a long time ago, because they see me talking about it all the time, and we could ask. We don't
I
like.
was going to say,
So
simple for us to ask the secretary to send us the gap analysis, right?
Yeah,
And give us a presentation on it.
yes,
See what happens.
and the plan for historical data. Other than we're doing a data lake, it would be very helpful. So we're at that point, and I think we're at the point in the project where a lot of people understand how it's going to be moving forward, and we need to hear from them. What's their assessment? Through this process, we hear a lot of things that are privileged, right? Information they can't give us, they're privileged. And, there was the spreadsheet yesterday. They contacted me and said, we don't want to post that. There's some information there that shouldn't be posted. And I had a quick conversation with Rick Segal, Ledge Council assigned to the IT, about this. And I talked to him about it last week, and he's giving it some thought on how, that we need a toolkit when somebody says something's privileged or they don't want to give it to us. Under what grounds? Because there aren't in public record laws, you know, there are some exemptions. So I'm not the lawyer. That's why I talked to him, and he's thinking about it. And he was going to talk to some people internally. So, but I think that relates to this on what we're given, what we're allowed to see, and, you know, where those lines are and what our toolkit is when the response is we can't give it to you, or you can't post that.
Yeah, right.
One thought I had or takeaway was when the secretary said, this is a government transformation project, not an IT project. Have we ever had anything?
All projects are like that.
Or
Really?
okay, that was my real question was like, is this just a larger scale of something like the UI project?
It's a larger scale. It really is.
But we've done the transformative thing successfully. Like a system might change because we're doing this.
Well, UI is a big change, just like the motor vehicles that completely changed the way they worked.
Right.
Completely. So that's another transformation. So in many ways, when you're doing the newer projects, they all are.
They're all transformative.
They all are. And
So
but-
ours and FARs are going to transform in order to
hopefully, yes.
with the tool.
Yes, and that's part of, you know, I had such a great meeting at ADS where they were talking about their new process of onboarding, and that with Stacy and other people on her team, and just how they're able to assess, you know, how can they refine their processes, and before they decide whether somebody needs a system, can it be met by some existing system? So a whole framework, and it was so good. And you know, I could think it, you know, this project, I don't think would have started this way if that had been in place. You know, so there's really good news on how we're transforming. The question is, based on how this was started, and it wasn't ideal, and I know she doesn't want to keep rehashing it. I really don't either. But the problem is the foundation wasn't there. And there's just going to be a ripple effect. That's my concern. But she doesn't share it, and she's sincere in her belief. So you know, at this point, the hard work was the review, and then just keeping an eye on it, and then just sharing what I see, and then
But the emphasis on outcomes, I mean, well, that's what we're after at the end of the day, right? It doesn't matter what IT project or not, we want functionality,
yeah,
right? So I appreciate that view of it, you know, like
yeah,
we need to focus on the outcomes. You know, the
absolutely.
whole IP is just a tool at the end of the day, right? To get us where we need to go.
Yeah, and the goal is to reform and make it better, and the process is smoother, because you know how government grows over time, and it's grown a lot over, you know, 30 years since Vision was implemented. So,
So on the ERP project, has any part of it gone up that's working now?
the budget, their replacement of the budget system went live last fall. So that one, I don't mean to make it seem small, because it, you know, that was an accomplishment for them and they needed to get off that old system. But it's also something that was managed in a spreadsheet by a guy named Otto for like 30 years. It's to the state. It's not that it shouldn't be managed that way. It's too critical. It is where it belongs. So they do have that success. But the issue is we've been paying licensing on that for, I think we're about our 5th payment. For the Workday subscriptions. And I think this year it's 3.5 million. And really, you know, it was 2 years late getting started. We spent I think it was 2.3 million before they even started the project, because it was just signed prematurely. So, you know, it's a question of, and now, you know, she says we're not losing time, but we're not going live with HR. We'll see. I think.
So they'll go up in modules?
Yes, but well,
Whatever.
the budget's already up. They were
Right.
going to go live with the HR module first, but that's what they consolidated. They said we can't, there's too much integration with the finance. We're gonna launch them both at the same time. So essentially they pushed the HR back to launch at the same time that the finance module will launch. That's the plan. And they say they're not lengthening the time frame.
Well,
Excuse me.
but I found that portion of the conversation I mean, you said you don't disagree with this decision, and if the overall deadline hasn't changed, I mean, I found that plausible. So, why is it important that HR go first and then the other module go second? If that's not going to work better, if it could complicate things, if it could cost more, like, why is that problematic?
Well, usually what they say is that they focus on modules to reduce risk one at a time and
Right.
like do it in small bites. Do you remember?
Yeah. No, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I don't disagree. My point was, yes, you didn't know, you couldn't have known because that work wasn't done.
Right.
And there's other work that hasn't been done that you don't know, though she's saying that gap analysis exists. So maybe, I did the follow-up for the oversight that was listed in the original review where we said, okay, once you're done with that base camp phase, you'll be able to give us the gaps, right? But then they said, well, we didn't really finish that yet. That phase is going to go through UAT. So I tried to get the information and they didn't provide it and said, because we're not done with it yet. So that's the biggest risk, that you don't really realize where all your gaps are until you've paid all the deliverables and you're about ready to go live, and then you realize what you have.
Do you pay before? So UAT sounds like the last phase to me. That's where you've got hands-on people who work at these agencies and departments actually using the system, seeing how it works, getting trained on it.
Yeah.
Have you already paid at that?
You paid for a lot of the deliverables. So typically you're paying for, the analysis phase where you have all these meetings and they're flushing it out and they give you the requirements. They say, does this look right? Do you agree with this? And you sign off on it or you don't. Right. And then you go to the next phase, which is the configuration, the hands-on configuration, where they take all the information and configure the system. And then they show it to you like, is this configured correctly? So it's all done in steps like that. And then usually you have like just these little testing blocks during the process. And then you end with a final UAT, because sometimes it might have worked in unit testing, but it doesn't work all together at the same time. So that's how it usually works.
So you mentioned we're paying a subscription for Workday.
Mhm.
Is that separate from paying for work done?
Yes, the implementation. Yeah.
Separate from paying for deliverables.
Mhm.
So we're paying. We've been paying a subscription fee for something that we're not using for the last couple of years. In effect,
They consider, usually you have to buy your subscription when you start the implementation, because you're using it, you're building it. So that's the norm, but you don't buy your subscriptions 2 years before you're going to start the project. I know that wasn't their intent, but that's where they were.
that's what
Yeah. And ironically, they had the delay because they decided they were going to go live with finance first, and then they decided to move it to HR first. So that was like the first delay. So, there are other changes. Along the line.
And the subscription fee is $2.50 a year.
It's not the same every single year. Like this coming year, like as you're reaching maturity, I think this payment is 3.5 or 3.6.
Okay, yeah.
I'm just off the top of my head.
Yeah. And is there a term for the subscription, or is
10 years.
And what happens at the end of 10 years?
You renegotiate what the subscription costs are.
And do we know what the subscription costs are for each of the 10 years?
Yes.
Is that something that's already?
It's, I definitely used it when I did my review.
Mhm. It's part of the cost that you have listed.
I actually have a column for Workday licenses in the review in the finance section.
Yeah, okay, I think I saw that too.
Yeah.
Okay, just sure. Yeah. An analogy occurred to me as we've been talking about this. We feel like we don't really have much control here. And this reminds me of teaching my kids how to drive. And it felt like I was still driving, just had a lot less control. Because I had to tell them exactly what to do, right? But then they would do it or not, it just, so it just feels like we don't have very much oversight or control here.
It does feel that way. I feel the same way. At some point, all you can do is watch.
You're right. Yeah, we told you that.
Okay, so now we do need to watch the clock.
Yeah,
So, okay, so your upcoming reviews?
the IE&E system. So that's coming up, and just to give you a status on that, because it's a lot of federal funds, they have to get approval for the RFPs from the feds, and they did that, and of course they were issued. They're in the phase where they're getting contract approval, and I guess there's two agencies they need, and they have received approval from the Center for Medicaid Services. And when I talked to them a few weeks back, because I meet with them every month, they said the next approval was pending, and the state had identified the independent reviewer for the CIO's independent review. And they said that when they get that, they would share the actual preferred vendor bid with me so I could get started on my review. But I can't finish it until they finish the CIO's independent review. But that's moving along. So the thing though that I think we need to follow up on is this last line, this last bullet. Remember in Jai Talk, I was under the impression they expected to make a budget request, but they didn't for the state match. But they didn't in the budget. And so there was some concern about that. And I kept pushing on them. And finally they said, if you want to know how we don't really understand how we're funding it. So they suggested we contact Tracy O'Connell, who is the CFO of AHS, and ask her to explain how they're funding this. And so I thought you might be interested in doing that.
On the dashboard, the AHS is the worst performer by far. So I guess as a follow-up question, is there someone in AHS or a team that we should be talking to? I mean, like you look at the top 6 or 7 worst performing, projects on the dashboard. They're all AHS. So I'm just wondering what our avenue to get a little more clarity on what the issues are over there.
I think you could contact them through the normal process that you have for scheduling meetings and mention which projects you'd like to talk about and that you'd like to talk about the dashboard and why some of the projects, and you can even list the projects that you want to discuss and get more information on why they're running in the red. You'll probably end up I know Kristen McClure oversees a lot of that. She's a deputy. She oversees a lot of the IT things, but I'm not sure if those projects fall under her purview, but it's definitely a good use for it.
That's the chair. But
Like, we'll have time. I mean,
seems like,
the end of the year gets so gappy and weird, right? We've got a couple bills we're working on. We're waiting for stuff to come back from the Senate. And then at the end of the year, we often have a lot of time. So
it would be interesting just because it does stand out.
Okay.
So the next one is the CWIS. Remember the DCF presentation?
Yeah.
Right.
So they're still under procurement, and I did reach out to them to see how they were doing. The program staff, we've talked a couple times. They're working really hard on this, and they were at the stage where they yes, it's us, we're the delay, but we insist on calling every reference. And they're basically doing due diligence, and so they're running later than what the IE&E folks are. And as soon as they reach a point where I can do the review, I will start that. But I did connect with, ADS about this and discussed that it just seemed like they could have used a little bit more support on the technical side. And they have assigned a project management manager to the process. It's at that stage. And the team at CWIS were talking about how happy they were about the assignment, and they thought it would work out great for them. And a big improvement. They had a contract project manager that they were not renewing that particular contract, so they were very excited to get this particular person. So they've been happy about that. But again, we don't know how they're being funded either. So maybe if we do invite the CFO over, we can understand where that is coming from too. So I don't know a lot because they can't say anything because it's open, but it's moving.
There was, my seatmate said that there's one of the problems in agency of it's getting our Medicaid match money. Is that this one or is that the IEE one?
I think it's the IE&E, but they mentioned, CWIS people mentioned the fact that if they can get a newer system, they can increase their match. I believe they testified to that. So it's the same thing. Just like if you look on the dashboard, you under AHS, you'll see IE&E and they have their noticing solution. What that is they were out of compliance with federal requirements, so they had to update this particular solution. And that's really been the bulk of the types of projects they've been dealing with over the last 5 years that are, 4 or 5 years that I've been involved. So, that's sort of where they are. But, the IE&E will be an update, brand new start for them.
So yesterday, the secretary said they'd be saving roughly $2 million a year in operational costs once ERP goes live. I mean, that sounded reasonable to me, given how old the old systems were and the potential level of integration and time saving. And
It's hard to judge it when I'm not convinced the costs are right. If I'm expecting increases.
Forget the cost of it though. Like once it's fully implemented, if the functionality is there.
Well, they will be able to retire PeopleSoft as long as they have figured out the historical data access.
But it also won't be a time saving across the entire state government.
I can only report on what I know for sure, and I do not know that. We would hope, but I don't know the answer to that. I can't report on what I haven't researched on because, I'm not seeing that level of the project and what it means. Like how long does it take the stars and bars people to do their stuff and what the end result, because it's not formulated yet. She might be convinced of that, and I'm sure she has a reason, but I don't have access to what she has.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's what's coming up. You want to look at the dashboard or are we running late?
No, we have time.
Okay. So
You guys are
let
at 10:30, right? Yeah, we have time.
let me just jump to the. I'm hoping I can. This was. It was doing this earlier. It was running so slow. Okay. Okay, so if we look at the dashboard here, go down to there we go. Much better, thank you. Okay, so here, the top row now, IE&E noticing solution. This is the, remember I said they're out of compliance and we'll be doing the full vote, but it's interesting to see where they are on this portion. They're ahead a year, it looks like, on the estimated completion date. And then you have the cost and the budget used at 26%. It looks like they are worried about the schedule. I think they had some delays, but they were coming in a year early, so
Well,
it'll be
a month there.
a month early. I'm sorry.
Sorry, which one are we on?
This very top one.
Oh, okay, great.
This is the noticing.
Oh,
section.
okay.
So that's their out of compliance piece that they're finishing up soon. So around AOA, here's the ERP project. Again, they're on the top line now. You'll see that they have a risk noted under the budget, risk, schedule, scope. So they're you know, they're either yellow or red overall. Um, and the costs, these are, it'll be
One sec, sorry.
okay.
I just want to remind myself who is responsible for what we're seeing in terms of those ratings.
Stacy,
So ADS.
yes,
So
the project managers work on this.
is that rating, like what we're seeing there, the risks are outlined, is that consistent with what we heard yesterday?
I think so. Remember when these are based on where the project is right now, today. So tomorrow, once they feel like they've resolved them and they're back on track and they have a plan, they might all be green, but it doesn't mean it's, you know, that it was completed on time. Those conversations. So it's important to look at those other dates that we have here. The initial completion date estimate versus the actual, and the initial cost versus the actual cost in the end. And, you know, it's funny when I started to, you know, look at the numbers I had for costs, some of them, they don't necessarily line up because they may not include staffing costs, and there's some variation it seems. So it'll be interesting to see what she uses and how they line up with the other documents that we have. I'll be here tomorrow. So the next one, I think it was, because we're looking active, is the one at the very bottom, the unemployment insurance. So they had, it doesn't look like it was updated. I know they had some caution around the budget and risk because they were waiting to sign the contract amendment that adjusted the costs and added new whatever new thing they wanted to implement. That they had reached an agreement with the vendor long before the amendment came forward. So, but they were counting the amendment, and I know that it was in the project management reports. They were talking a lot about delays related to the amendment, but that seems fine. And remember, they're still on track for completion in the summer.
So for follow-up, I think you were okay, so I'm gonna redraft the memo and I'll send it to everybody for feedback and review. I have an interest in hearing more on the ERP project from sort of stars and bars on the ground. We're doing the work, folks, and it sounded like, were you going to suggest actual people or?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll help us figure out who we should invite. I wanted to, and then there were some specific projects that we want to take more oversight testimony on, just as time permits, that are on the dashboard. And which was, anyway, they're up there.
And then the question of whether you want to talk to the AHS CFO about the cost for where they're getting the money for IE and state match and CWIS.
Well, so maybe we just want to talk to AHS about IE and CWIS in general, how they're doing. I know we had a hearing on it a while back, but
I think the program team really pushed back when I was asking about the money. They said you need to talk to the CFO. So I want to respect that. So I don't know why, but maybe we do want to at least talk to her about that.
Okay.
But in terms of the other projects that you're looking at, I know you have a process for identifying the people, but I'll try and get names for the stars and FARs. And
that's at VTrans and VDOL, right?
yes.
No, yes.
That's correct.
Great.
So,
okay.
All
right. Next steps. Great. All right.
And we are also gonna ask, digital services for their gap analysis, their
Yes.
data.
Yes. Yep. I need to write over. Okay. So ADS, we want to see the plan for the historical data, right?
And their completed gap analysis.
And the plan for the historical data, is that specific to stars and bars, or is
No.
it just across?
That's for everything. They're only loading 1 year's of data into the system, and yet employees constantly, business managers need access to historical data to return grants, for example, and other things. So
And then completed gap analysis. And these are both specific to ERP, right?
yes,
Okay, so that's just an email. Okay, then 2, we're gonna finish the budget memo. Then 3, we want to take testimony, again, specific to ERP, the stars and bars. And Lisa's gonna help with who to ask for that. And then we're gonna learn more about, from AHS. We want to hear about
IE and E.
IE and E and CWIS. We want to learn more about a project update,
On
including, no, I think in general. And then including the funding. And I'll look back at your memo to figure that out. Did I get everything? Okay, great.
Great. Thank you
Lisa,
very much.
thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Would you guys mind if we take a 5-minute break? Okay, let's go off live and we'll be back in 7 minutes.